let's touch on Arsenal's performance. Beaten 1-0 in the first leg out in Porto. Porto have only been beaten at home twice so far this season, so it was always going to be a difficult place to go. They aren't playing particularly well in the top flight in Portugal, third in the table right now, which by their standards, great football club, isn't great. But maybe they have a little bit more experience in European games over the last 5 or 6 years than Arsenal do. I don't know, because Arsenal's approach last night for me was way too lacklustre for a side that went into a tie, heavily favourites. They ended up beaten by a late goal. What did you make of their performance there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too carried away. I feel like obviously since the game, there's been a lot of focus on the fact that it was the first time Arsenal haven't registered a shot on target in 2 years. But ultimately, you're going to have a bad game, Hugh. These things happen. Individually, I think Bukayo Saka wasn't his best game. Martinelli made that mistake. But I think there needs to be some type of balance here as well, because, I mean, sometimes you can say these things on TV and radio and it comes back to bite you, but I think Arsenal will still go through. So, you know, they lost that game. But again, number 9, Hugh. Do you know what I mean? They're playing without a number 9. You know, Trossard, I like Trossard. And I remember when he signed and you were saying you think he'd be more of a squad player. And I said to you, you know, about a year ago or so, I said, I think he'll offer a little bit more than that. And I think he's been good. But you look at the squad and you look at the depth, made one substitution, Jorginho, realistically, we spoke about it before, Hugh. Why are they not bringing on Eddie Nketiah? I said we then, because I played so long at the club. But let me rephrase that. But I mean, I think there needs to be some type of balance with Arsenal, because I think when they lose, it's like, oh my God, Arsenal have choked again. You know, they've done this. And I get that. But I don't think it's as a disaster as a lot of people have made out. I don't think it is. It wasn't a great performance, but I don't think the game was that good, Hugh. I don't think the game was that good in general.
Listen, we'll come back to it after the break. For me, as a favourite in a tie, it's not that you can't be beaten 1-0. I think the impetus is on you. You have to go there. The onus is on you to go there and, if you like, force the game. And I didn't feel like Arsenal were the team trying to do that. And I thought about the other quality teams in the Premier League, away from home in Europe. It's not that you won't lose by a goal. It can happen. But you go there with that right intention to go out and dominate the game. And it felt like Arsenal from the start felt happy drawing that match, felt happy going home with a draw, whether they played well or not, as opposed to going all out to win that game and ending up with a draw. It felt like the wrong mentality. And it was a learning experience, and I agree with Mikel Arteta, who said that afterwards, because that was the main thing for me. I looked at it and went, how critical can I be? Most of these players haven't played a knockout game in Europe before, and it was away from home in Portugal. Not an easy place to go. But I still felt from his perspective, the team should have forced the game a little bit more. And actually, the mistake at the end, the clearance from Martinelli, that when for some reason he missed 3 Arsenal shirts and went to a Porto player, the fact Declan Rice couldn't get out and pressurised the shot that came in, Galeno scoring the curled effort late on, which was a lovely goal. I think David Raya could have done better as well, but I think there was a little bit of tiredness there. That came from what you just mentioned. 1, not enough substitutions from Arteta. And number 2, for me, I think a lack of control over the game that meant Arsenal were just doing a little bit too much running in terms of losing the ball far too easily. We'll talk about the forward in a minute as well, because I felt like every time the wingers got the ball, you look in the middle of the pitch and there was no one for them to give the ball to. So as much as I want to criticise Saka and Martinelli, I think there was a tactical reason for that. Arsenal, in the odds, are just behind Real Madrid and Manchester City when it comes to the chances of lifting this trophy at the end of the season. And for me, the game against Porto, when I think about one of the favourites for the Champions League, as I said, not an easy place to go, but I still expect the better teams to really force the game. And I didn't see that from Arsenal. And I felt at times that they were defending quite deep, unlike a normal Arsenal performance. And what it said to me is, possibly, Mikel Arteta has either told them we need to play a little bit differently away from home. It's a 2-legged affair. We don't have to be our usual selves. And Arsenal were thinking, well, we usually go out to win games away from home. Or the players were a little bit unnerved by either the occasion. I know a lot of the players mentioned the number of fouls. You know, European football is European football and they have to be used to it. And ultimately, I think a side with the quality that they have shouldn't be worried about, well, players were going down easy and the ref was giving a lot of fouls and we got early yellows and stuff like that, because that's going to happen in big games. It's going to happen when you get to semi-finals and finals, and they should be used to it if they're a quality side. So I was confused by what I saw.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I think, you know, I'm not trying to be Arsenal's cheerleader, but I think if this happened, if they were to lose this tie over the 2 legs, then I will have a different opinion, because I think as a footballer, you are going to have days it's not your day. That's what I saw last night. Saka, Martinelli, and Havertz. Like, I don't see it. I'm sorry, I just don't. And I look at Arsenal's squad depth, and they also don't have the best squad depth, Hugh. Let's be honest, yes, he only made one substitution. Maybe Nketiah could have come on, but you look at this club, and I think Arsenal should be attracting better players, have better squad depth. I think, ultimately, I agree with what you're saying. But no one's got a foregone conclusion, Hugh, that you're going to go somewhere. It's the Champions League and going to walk it.
No.
And I think that's the reality. I think Arsenal thought they were going to win that game like 3 or 4. I think the fans did as well. But I think if they don't win this game, the second leg, in a few weeks' time, I think it will be, all those people will come after them. Arsenal choke at the final hurdle, similar to last year in the Premier League.
We're not close to the final hurdle.
No, but West Ham, Southampton game, the City game last year, not the final hurdle, but these games, I agree with you, like, it's probably the best opportunity that Arsenal have to potentially win the Champions League. We touched upon it yesterday in our production meeting. Those teams like Juventus, Bayern, they're not at that level anymore due to FFP and those types of things. And a lot of the time, those teams have been up there, haven't they? And right now, apart from City and Real Madrid, I don't really see other teams that are better than Arsenal on their day. Arsenal scored 14 goals in the last 3 games. Liverpool, Burnley, they play well. West Ham. But again, I agree with you. It was quite weird that they weren't on the front foot against Porto. But again, in those games, in those big European nights, you need people that are going to stand up when it really matters. And when you look at the Arsenal team, the only player that I think has that level of is Declan Rice. I mean, Declan Rice is just unbelievable. Yeah, I know he should have stepped out a little bit more, but one thing I will say about that goal, the last thing that Mikel Arteta would have wanted is for them to have lost that ball when they're building out from the back, because Martinelli, yes, we all do square passes and that, and I don't want to come after him, but that ball he played, it just put everyone on the back foot. When you say Declan Rice should have got out quicker, yes, he should have, but Arsenal were in their build-up phase. They weren't looking to have people coming at them, so the ball that Martinelli played was quite strange, based upon the fact that Arsenal were in the phase of play where they were building up, weren't they?
Do you think you should put Aaron Ramsdale back in goal?
You know what I think of this situation, I love Aaron Ramsdale. I said it last week on the show. I want him at Man United. I think Aaron Ramsdale's a top goalkeeper. I really do. I think he's better than Pickford. I think he should play for England. But again, it goes back to how can you say that when he's not playing for Arsenal? Yeah. But I don't think people saying, the footballers, they should, about treatment. I think it's weird. Goalkeeper of the year last year. And it's like yesterday, you saw there was a time in the game where Raya gets the ball, plays it out to Saliba, and it's like, it just goes out of play. So it's high-risk football, I get that. And some Arsenal fans are saying, they prefer Raya, but I don't think that was a situation that needed to change. While all the while, Arsenal playing without a number 9. But we're going to replace the goalkeeper of the year. It doesn't make sense to me. So I only say what I see, and I like Ramsdale, and that's the reality. The goal that was scored, I mean, I agree with what you said, Hugh, before. I think it was a brilliant goal, but I do think Raya was too far out. I really do. I think it allowed, the ball to be bent in the top corner. Fantastic finish. But I want to, I'm not a goalkeeper. And I'm sure most goalkeepers would say this. I think Raya, when he's looking at that, will say the same thing himself. People might think, oh my God, what a goal. But if you look at his positioning, he was about 4 or 5 yards too high.
Yeah. For me, I was so disappointed with the way that Arsenal performed, because I think they are genuinely one of the favourites to win this title. I've said it to you guys off air. I'll say it on air. I don't mind. For me, Arsenal have a better chance of winning the Champions League this season than they did in 2006 when they reached the final. I truly believe that. For me, if they don't reach the semi-final of the Champions League this year, it's a huge disappointment. Because of the quality that they've already shown. Going into this game, people were talking about 11 goals in 2 games. Arsenal have hit their strides. Maturity coming for the younger players. All the questions over them over the last few years beginning to be dispelled. We're even talking about them winning the Champions League. Those experiences last year are going to culminate towards a more mature team that can hang on this year in the title race and can compete with Liverpool and Manchester City right to the death. And then we saw a performance like that. I get the depth thing, because I think the bench wasn't great last night. But I think when you're looking at how the team's playing, you just need to change it, Mikel Arteta. You can't sit there and say, I'll leave Kai Havertz on. 0 presence in the middle of the field, or Trossard on. He came off for Jorginho in the end. That wasn't a like-for-like swap, obviously, and it was clearly tactical, but you need a penalty box presence. I watched so many of these games in the Champions League, and I watched so many of the goals that were scored in the Champions League, including the goal that was scored against Arsenal, and by having a presence in the middle of the box, goals were scored from outside the box, because even when you look at Declan Rice's position, he's thinking, is there going to be a slip through ball into the forward in the middle of the penalty area? So do I need to block that angle before I get out and block the shot? But
like I said, Hugh, because the way that the ball was turned over by Martinelli, I don't think you have to be ready for everything. I get that. But I don't think that the players were. Maybe that's why Raya was a little bit higher up, because the ball was turned over. You don't really see it happen in men's football.
I get that point, but I'm talking about the other end of the pitch for Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying it on this show.
You need a presence in the penalty box.
Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney, sorry.
Should they have bought a striker? Is this another game that we said in January they probably should have gone and got someone?
All day long. I like Gabriel Jesus. I know a lot of Arsenal fans do, but ultimately, you are not going to win titles or Champions League without a number 9. You just can't. And I find it flabbergasting that Chelsea and Arsenal don't have that number 9 that they need to score goals. They don't. How can you be starting these games with Havertz and Trossard trying to get... I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. Trossard's better coming from deeper.